I'm tired. I'm going to try and go quick on this. I'm checking the news, and we'll talk more about how your media here. You know, one of the news stories I just saw on the local news media was the Corpus Christi Police Department is responding to a shooting on the north side. Now, that headline would indicate that there was a shooting that the cops responded to. Now, I'm looking at all the local sites. I checked them all for you media. We'll talk to you media today. And then another site said CCPD responds to a shooting on the north side. That's the headline. What do you think when you see that? You think somebody shot and they went. As far as I could tell, the only shooting was by a cop. Because what they responded to was one of their officers shot somebody. Now, I don't think they're going to cover that case. Because you said you don't have a lot of cases in Corpus where we've had other things. What we want is to get to the bottom of that one. But the way they covered it was manipulation. Pure and simple. And it, supposedly, as far as I could tell, because I did read the article, the person that CCPD shot, as far as we know, the shooting was just an officer that shot somebody. Now, I don't want to jump the gun, but the reporting of that is what you saw, media manipulation. Then the rest of the report I read said the officer's in the hospital and hopefully he'll be okay and all. True reporting looks at the incident and never reports it like that. Now, I didn't want to do another one because these are draining me. I mentioned on the earlier rollout videos that the news last night covered the cops and trying to give good PR, and I understand that. And, John, do you think maybe it is a result of some of your criticisms? I don't want to be that high-minded to think it's a result of my blogging. But I felt it might have been because they also spoke about Judge Sandra Watts. They said how she does a lot of good in the community, things of that nature. And I've criticized Ms. Watts. There was a case the other day, what you don't see, I forgot what case it was, but okay, it was the officer, this is national news, it just came out this week on national news. And it was a video, I shared that video, I'm not going to share it again. But it was an officer who beat up some black kid. But the video finally surfaced. The video I shared wasn't the best video, because as far as showing you the actual account. But what happened was a white cop pulled over a black younger guy. And when the black guy got out of the car, the white cop said he resisted arrest. This was on NBC News, World News, this past week. And the video finally surfaced. But every police report from that incident before the video came out, to the best of my knowledge, those police reports basically said it was justified, this black kid was resisting, but it was on a highway, so civilians took video. The mayor of that town believed all those police reports that this officer, because you have the opinion, the same thing of the building of public opinion, you have the opinion that, well, surely he told the truth, because they're filling out reports and they're not supposed to lie on those. But finally, when you saw the video actually showed when that cop pulled that black kid out of the car, he got out of the car, the black kid was not resisting arrest. The clearer video showed that. When the mayor saw it, this is what she said. I believe they fired the cop, but the mayor said something like this of, wow, it was, wrong or bad. It wasn't the same impression you would have if you realized there was massive lying in that particular case. Why bring up the Miss Watts thing again? As much as some of the conversation I had the last few days, righteousness or as filthy rags, which is Isaiah, Furman's been bringing that up. When you do investigative journalism, as good as the people might be that are either judges or officers or whatever role they're in. I went to the house fire yesterday. I showed that on the video on the rollout. If a firefighter is doing a good job, well, part of his job obviously is to put out fires. And then if you found out that that firefighter actually was doing arson on his days off, which has happened sometimes with volunteer firefighters. It's just kind of history in the country. You don't look at the arsonist that's a firefighter and say, well, that's like he does good on other days. And the way the public views when cops cross the line, those are actual crimes committed in those instances. And the way you see the response of whether it's the mayor or whoever, the example I gave, the response is, but they're still good community people. But what you see is actually they're committing crimes in those instances. And it's not viewed that way. I've heard the incident I shared on the earlier videos, I've heard my friends say multiple times that in some of those aggressive policing tactics, they would hold a baggie. As a matter of fact, that original thing I spoke about, I gave the names of all these people and addresses. He said, oh, look what I found on you. And it was very interesting that another friend of mine, who doesn't even know the original planting of the Xanax, said, oh, look it, I got cocaine in your car. And then that gets processed through. And the judges, Mrs. Watts or whoever, as well as good as you feel like you're doing in the community, it's your inability to understand that in those instances, when you signed off on those things, you crossed the line by putting your name when those guys are processed in that manner. That's what you don't see. Now, what will be reported on this officer-involved shooting, which the local media was putting as cops respond to a shooting? Those are the headlines. CCPD responds to a shooting. And as far as I can tell, the only shooting was an officer shot somebody. And the coverage was not yet. I understand it's early because it just happened. But the media coverage was, we hope the officer is okay. As far as I could tell, the officer was the only one that shot, from what I'm reading. Now, I'm not jumping the gun, but I'm showing you the way that's portrayed. And I felt that this was KIII News last night, Joe Gazin and the other lady, that did what I felt was a PR piece, because it showed the officers out there were making domestic violence warrant arrests, which I understand. All of that is a good thing, like when firefighters put out a fire. But if you were to view the fireman arsonist sort of like, well, no, you would view, that's it. You started a fire and your job is to put them out. And when these guys hold up a bag of cocaine or a bag of Xanax, which is a very real thing that has happened across this country, it's not, oops, it's no, you're a law officer and you just broke it. So we'll see how much more comes up. I didn't want to do rollout today, but just the coverage of the media on that particular thing shows you an immediate manipulation. And there was also a man that was run over by an officer a couple years ago, and I'm sure that guy was speeding at night without lights, the officer. They never gave a follow-up. I don't know, it was a minority man that was run over. I think it was a black man. And the coverage of the local media, that officer was speeding at night with his lights off. And then he hit somebody. It was either Leopard or Agnes. It was downtown about 2 years ago. And the media covered that by saying the officers were all shaken. Hopefully, no coverage of the victim. They did the same thing when that disabled kid about 4 years ago, the mother called, he had a mental problem, the kid got shot. Now, it was a response like an MHMR call. The media covered the same thing. That kid went into the hospital, and then when he got out, they charged him. And, of course, the kid might have had a knife, or I forgot what it was. Our local media coverage, you see what you see on a national level? You do not have. I think the only one that covered it somewhat fairly as I looked at all the sites was KRAS, because that should have not been reported as cops respond to a shooting on the north side. It should have been reported as there was an officer-involved shooting. And I'm not questioning at this early stage whether it was justified or not. But that's why those that watch my videos in other places, you say, but you don't seem to have a lot of cases there in Corpus where these come up like another. That's why. The local media covers these cases as what I just showed you. You understand?